Well, hello everybody, and thank you for joining the SoCal Edison Retirement Planning webinar. It's September 30th, 2020. I am Kerry Facer along with my teammates here, Justin Rucci and Emily Balmages, and we're going to be presenting to you the SoCal Edison Retirement webinar. So thank you for joining us, and let's begin. First, we have some disclosures. If you need a copy of our ADV, call the number there, 714-876-6200. This is background information about us as advisors and Warren Street Wealth Advisors. So we're going to discuss our steps for a successful retirement. We have 8 of them here. We're going to cover these in detail. Obviously, number 1, attend the workshop. You're here, so thank you for joining us. Let's get started. Edison stock is always being talked about. I think it's trading in the low 50s today. And we hear all the time, what should we do with this? And I thought this was a fun way to think about it. We're in a recession and maybe a smart time to buy. Are you leaving? Did you get fired? Layoffs, this is so depressing. Depression, we're in a depression. Sell. So here's our team. That's me there in the center. I have been working in the SoCal Edison space, helping our clients retire for about 14 years now. And collectively as a whole, our team works with about 250 families. And we're local here in SoCal, based out of Tustin, and looking forward to helping you. So the first item, we're done. So you're attending the workshop. Congratulations, you got the first one done already. So now it's time to read the retirement handbook. And to cover the retirement handbook, Justin Rucci, Certified Financial Planner, is with us on the call. Justin, you there?
Yes, thanks, Kerry. So I'm going to just quickly run through the retirement handbook. This is a document that we also have in PDF format, so certainly you'll be able to get this as a reference item later on if you'd like. The first 2 items on our handbook checklist here are just making sure you have a plan to begin with. So retirement planning isn't always the most fun thing to think about in many cases. So a lot of times you may not think you need to have a plan, but as you can see, we dedicated 2 bullet points to it. So it's an important thing to at least get started, and obviously by being here, you're getting started on putting a plan together. Number 3 is making sure that your retirement timing is correct. This can vary person to person, but you want to make sure you're utilizing all the employee benefits you have available to you, whether they are bonuses, sick time payouts, vacation time payouts, or from a tax perspective, maybe starting a new calendar year fresh as a retiree. Number 4 is, if you want to retire early, main point here is you don't have to necessarily be 59 and a half, the IRS typical retirement age. We do see people go sometimes as early as 55 or anywhere in between, and we can help you figure out how to plan to do that without penalty. Number 5 is plan for your medical expenses. So this means figuring out what you have in terms of benefits from the company and adding that in as a budget item in your retirement expense projections. Number 6 is say goodbye to credit card debt. So this is an important step. You want to try and clean up the balance sheet as much as you can leading up to retirement and try and get all high interest debt paid off as soon as possible. And lastly, here kind of goes hand in hand with getting debt paid off is once you've done that, then the next logical step is to just build up some emergency savings. We recommend trying to get to 6 months or so worth of expenses. 8 is keeping a budget. This is really one of the most important steps of planning for retirement. You can have all the money in the world saved up, but unless you know exactly how much or roughly how much you're going to spend each month, we can't really tell you whether or not your retirement plan is going to work. So keeping a budget and building a retirement budget is something we're going to cover a little bit later on, as that's an important step. Number 9 is weighing your options on Social Security. I'm not going to dive into this too much because actually Emily is going to cover this in a couple slides, but just know that you have options on when you collect, and it's an important decision that can make a pretty big difference in your plan success rate. And lastly here, making sure that you're investing properly for retirement, whether that be diversification and not being all in company stock, or whether that be taking advantage of the 401k and the tax avenues in front of you. So we completed the first 2 items on our checklist. Like I mentioned, I'm going to actually pass to Emily for number 3 here. She's going to go over the common roadblocks that we frequently see individuals run into as they begin to plan for retirement.
Hi, everybody. Great to be here today. So yes, we're going to quickly run through some roadblocks, and if these are relatable at all, you are not alone. They are very common. So number 1, you're going to hear us say this again and again. Failure to plan is probably the number 1 roadblock. And really, I would say it's never too early to start. I mean, we know life will change. plans will change, but really just kind of setting up some sort of structure, starting to think about it now. And I've seen clients completely change their savings habits once a plan is in place. And just kind of seeing what saving today can look like 20 years down the road as we run projections can be very motivating. So that's why the plan can not only be good from a planning perspective, logistical perspective, also from a psychological perspective can be very motivating. So you'll hear us say that again and again. Inflation, this is a big one. I mean, even at just 2% a year, inflation can have a major impact over a 30 to 40 year retirement time horizon. So you want to make sure any projections that you run include inflation as a factor. Tax burden, we all know this one is inescapable, but there are certain strategies to reduce your tax burden. And this is another one where starting earlier to address this can be more powerful over the long run, because some of those strategies pay off when you start earlier, even during your working years. Procrastination, of course, we can all relate to this one to some extent. Most people, I think as Justin mentioned, find financial planning topics to be intimidating, confusing, or boring. So a lot of times it just kind of makes it to the bottom of the list in our day-to-day busy lives. So that's when kind of partnering with someone can help you kind of bring it to the forefront and start kind of working through some of the planning. Lack of financial knowledge, extremely common. We see this all the time. There's so much to know. Things like tax laws change all the time. So this is where partnering with a trusted advisor can really help steer things in the right direction. Two areas where we see a lot of kind of the lack of financial knowledge, there's just a lot of questions and confusion are both Medicare and Social Security planning. So that's a perfect timing to move to our next slide. I wanted to just cover some very high level Social Security concepts. Certainly every situation is unique, and we would want to delve into each client situation individually before making any recommendations. But just wanted to hit on some high level topics. You probably are familiar with most of these concepts. But anyway, just going to run through these very quickly. So you probably are aware you can claim Social Security between ages 62 and 70. The exception being if you are a widow or widower, you can claim as early as 60. You can collect while you are working, but if you are younger than full retirement age, your benefit will be reduced. So that's something you want to address and analyze before making that decision. Full retirement age today is between 66 and 67 years old, depending on the year in which you were born. Anyone born after 1960, you are squarely in the 67 full retirement age category. Waiting until 70 can pay off. You are probably aware that delaying between full retirement age and 70 it entitles you to what's called a delayed retirement credit of 8% per year. And so that can be very powerful. If you wait the full 4 years, that's a 32% increase in the benefits you're going to receive. So it can be very powerful, but again, you wanna factor in, you're also not drawing benefits for those 4 years. Very, very back of the envelope math, just to kind of give people a starting point in how to think about this. The break even is in the mid 80s. So a person waiting until 70, either drawing at 66 or waiting until 70, break even happens in about the mid 80s. So once they hit their mid 80s, they benefited by waiting. So that's, just again, back of the envelope math. Every situation is unique, but just kind of gives you an idea of what we're talking about in terms of when it really can pay to wait. There are spousal benefits and strategies around spousal benefits. So anytime you're dealing with spouses, it's a more complex analysis, and you really want to take your time in making the decisions. Many times it pays off for one spouse to drop earlier and one spouse to wait until 70. But again, every situation is unique. Just want to be sure in any kind of spousal situation, people are aware there are strategies. Underlying all of these decisions are anticipated longevity. It all boils down to that. So if you think longevity is in your genes and potentially in your future, that's going to be a factor in this decision making. If there are medical concerns, or you think potentially a less than average life expectancy to consider, then that's going to be a factor in the decision making as well. So that really kind of underlies all the strategies and is certainly part of the discussion. We know no one knows for sure, but it's just part of the discussion and part of the analysis. Then the big question is Social Security going away. We get this question a lot, and certainly it's a very complex problem, and the program faces a lot of very serious issues. However, we don't think the program is going away. There are legislative fixes, and we do expect that the problems will be addressed. They're basically, you can either raise revenues going into the program or decrease benefits coming out of the program, and we expect that what will happen is revenues will be raised to keep the program afloat. It's been a very successful program, and certainly a lot of Americans rely on it. So we don't think it's going away, and kind of would love to talk to you in depth and look at your specifics of your situation.
So I'm going to go over number 4 on our to-do list for today, which is just some basic investment tips next. The first one is save, which probably goes without saying, but it's really the thing that you have the most control over, and frankly, sometimes makes the most difference, which is just controlling how much you're able to put away each month. Next one is being willing to take risks. So not just saving money for saving's sake and sticking it under the mattress, but being willing to invest that money and take smart risks with it. By smart risk, what I really mean is bullet point number 3, which is diversification, not having it all in any one company or even any one sector, or sometimes even geographical location, which we talk about a lot, and we'll get to a little bit later also. Number 4 is rebalance. So a common thing we see is somebody will set up their 401k when they first started a company and then never take any action on it again. And rebalancing is actually a really powerful tool that can actually result in higher returns over a long period of time. So it's something that you want to make sure that you're doing on a somewhat regular basis. And lastly here is think contrarian. And what that really means is avoid the water cooler talk. And in many cases, the best investment opportunities are the one that no one is talking about on the news or otherwise. We're going to jump to the retirement toolkit. So I alluded to this a little bit earlier in the presentation, but this is made up of 2 main pieces. The first one is what we call your net worth scorecard. This is basically similar to what you would do for a budget, which we'll cover next, but this is kind of an outline of all the different categories we typically see in terms of assets, whether it be cash, checking, investment accounts, retirement accounts, home, etc. Typical liability categories, mortgage, student loans, credit cards, etc. You want to total each of those different subcategories up, and then subtract your liabilities from your assets, and that'll give you your net worth. Once you have that done, we'll compare it to the budget, which is the second piece of the retirement toolkit. Same concept here. We kind of laid out one of the most common things we see in each of these categories, and to just make this easier, this is a really important step. Like I said before, if we don't know how much you need to spend each month, we really can't run an exact projection of what your retirement will look like. So we usually recommend spending about 15-20 minutes to get a rough idea. It does not have to be down to the penny. Just get a rough idea of what your expenses are each month, so you can see a comparison of what you need to spend versus what you have saved, and allow us to run the numbers for you. The next step on our to-do list for today is to build your vision for retirement. So I'm actually going to pass it back to Kerry. He's going to go over steps 6 and 7 on our to-do list today.
Yeah, thank you, Justin. One item too, so we had a lot of people joining, and for anybody listening to the replay, we make both the toolkit and the handbook available to anybody that would like a copy of those. So don't feel like you need to a screenshot or write everything down. So at the end of the webinar, we'll have some information to contact us, and we are happy to give you a copy of the handbook and also the toolkit, which includes the items that Justin just covered. So thank you for that, Justin. So as far as building your vision, as I mentioned earlier in the call, this is my 14th year working with Southern California Edison families, helping them retire. And one of the things I've grown to enjoy more than anything is helping our clients identify what they're going to do with all this new time. So the idea of retiring and transitioning into retirement might seem like a long ways away, difficult, confusing, frustrating, and you might be worried about it. But our goal is to help you prepare and plan for that date. And so when you do finally get to that date, is having some clarity around what you want to do with your time. So we always try to remind in our first meeting or two with a new family and client, is getting them clear about what they're going to do with that time. And so we want to be thinking about hobbies. And then when we think about moving as well, in retirement, be thinking about the relationships and the weather in the states that you might want to reside in during retirement. So, be thinking about travel, sports, maybe going back to school. And then we also hear volunteer. This comes up a lot. Is you now have enough time and hopefully money to do whatever it is you want to do. And so maybe it's volunteering with a local charity or even your church. So just some things to think about now as far as that goes. Where you're going to live in retirement, obviously, if you look in the red here on the left-hand side, it's no surprise that the coastal areas are going to be the most expensive to live in. And you can see this list here, I think about 6 or 7 of these are in California in the top most expensive metro areas. No shocker. And then you can see right where we are today in Southern California, bright red there on the bottom left. So where you want to live in retirement, we can help you identify the states that are have the lowest cost of living, or even the cities and states lowest cost of living and are the most tax efficient. But the reality is, when our clients retire, they go to where the weather is great, that they enjoy, and where the relationships are, friends and family. So it's really a combination of 3 things. It's the tax, the financial side, which is like the tax, income tax, the cost of living, and then the relationships and weather. And if you have a specific state or city in mind, go spend a winter there. Take, use some of your vacation while you're still employed, and go spend a good week or 2 during the winter time. We hear often from our clients who move away, the summers are great, and that's usually when they visit, Idaho, Texas, Arizona, Washington State, Tennessee, Florida. These are some of the more common states we've seen our clients retire to. But we really encourage you now, while you're working, while you haven't made the big decision to retire, you can go back to work a little bit longer and use up some vacation before you do retire, is go try one of these areas. So talking about longevity and planning, which Justin and Emily both alluded to earlier, is looking at life longevity. A lot of our clients think because we're investment managers that we might be risky. We are not. We are very conservative in our approach to retirement income and providing investment portfolios, investment management to the families we service. And what we want to do and look at when we are making calculations and assumptions for retirement is life expectancy. So the great news is, and this is nothing earth-shattering, everybody's been hearing this, but life expectancy is increasing around the world. And good news for everybody here in this call is, in North America, it holds, that's the red line at top, the longest life expectancy. So when we're building a plan and we're thinking about retiring, at the first age is usually age 55, and then 59 and a half, 62 and 65 are the most common ones. Beyond that, it's 66, 67 when full retirement age is available for Social Security retirement income. We really need to be thinking about the next 25 to 35 years worth of living and lifestyle. So it's back to the hobbies, travel, time that you're going to be spending in retirement, and then planning to make sure that we have enough money to accomplish all your goals. We're going to cover some next steps now. And what we say about next steps is, at the end of these, a lot of people want to know, all right, what does this cost to work with Warren Street Wealth Advisors? And being fiduciaries and not working on commission with our investments, we're very transparent about our pricing. And so here it is. So if you wanted to work with us and you wanted us to build you a comprehensive financial plan, those start at $1,200. And if anybody's on this call and wants to know how that works, we're going to make our schedule available at the end, and you just book a Zoom call with us. We're happy to give you a free retirement consultation and discuss with you whatever concerns you have during that time about retirement, and we're happy to give you some advice. And then at the end of that, if you did want to look at what it would take to work with us, we can run you a quote, or give you an estimate as far as working with us. But we have 2 services. The first one is financial planning. The second is investment management. And if you wanted a comprehensive financial plan, they start at $1,200. If you want to have us manage your 401k, and we do have a special program for Southern California Edison employees, and we also talked about this in the invitation, how to buy individual stock in your 401k. You can do that on your own at Southern California Edison in the Tier 3 option. You have to open up a Charles Schwab self-directed brokerage account and transfer some money from your core to the Tier 3 option. Once you're inside of there, you can log into Charles Schwab and you can buy and sell securities. And so when a client calls us from Southern California Edison and says, hey, I want to buy, insert some company name, and by the way, these are not stock recommendations, but if you wanted to buy Peloton, or if you wanted to buy Amazon, Facebook, Google all the names that we hear in Tesla very often, you can do that inside your 401k. So it doesn't cost anything to do it on your own. However, you wanted our firm to manage your 401k for you. It's this investment management tier right here. So most of our clients are referred to us. In fact, I'm looking at the names that are on this call. Is a handful of you have been referred to us by our existing clients. We do not do a lot of advertising. We do word of mouth. And so if you're referred to us, you would fall under our friends and family pricing, which would discount the first tier there from 1.25% down to a flat 1% on the first million. And then we allow bundled pricing for up to 5 families. So if you and a friend are retiring and you're referred to by an existing client that were 3 families, you would get discounted pricing as if you were one $3 million account if all 3 of you had $1 million each in retirement. In retirement. Our goal was to build this program out for our clients to stay competitive with the big, a DIY shops, like maybe like a Vanguard or Fidelity, where you have an 800 number and a CFP to call every once in a while. The difference with us, though, is we're a boutique shop, we're local, and we take great care of our clients. So this is a way we can all benefit is through our Friends and Family program, and that's the schedule right there. Our process on the financial planning, so if you wanted to talk to us, we offer a complimentary, like no obligation, no strings attached call with our team. And that is established. That's the first one there. And that's your opportunity to ask us anything you would like about, maybe it's your retiree medical benefit. You aren't sure if you're getting the 50% or the 85% subsidy, or you weren't sure if you're grandfathered. And pretty much everybody in the old pension plan is pretty much, retired now. And everybody's on the cash balance formula, but we still do see those occasionally who made that April 1st, 1999 date. So things like that, or you own all Edison stock. And if you own all Edison stock and you're 100% in Edison stock, you've seen a roller coaster and a very difficult year for you, to say the least. And maybe you just need some advice on how to either one, diversify, or maybe you move to all cash and you're trying to figure out how to ease back into the market. Those are things you can ask us on the first meeting, and we're happy to give you some advice during that first call. And then if you decide to want to work with us, then we will actually get into giving you like a real proposal, and that's in Discover, and then finally a plan, solutions, implementation. And what we do every day for our families that we help in retirement is monitor and adapt their plan and investments. A little bit of background on our systems. This is a lot to look at, but we don't go by gut. We have seen a lot of different things over the years, but we still rely on data to make assessments and to look at our assumptions. And the real idea here is that once we get the plan done for you, and you're confident that the numbers are absolutely accurate in your plan, and we've gone back and forth and scrubbed them a few times to where we know they are, we can then play around with retirement age, which is the easiest thing to help a plan move back on track. So if you wanted to retire, let's say age 53, which it shows here, and that wasn't working, let's see what age 54 looks like. Okay, one extra year might move a plan from the 72% to, let's say, 77 in this example, but or actually this one's 55. So 2 more years in this example went from 72 to 77%. Obviously, the longer you work, the better the plan is. Our goal isn't to put you back to work. Our goal is to help you retire, but we want to share with you what a year or 2 difference can really do, especially in your mid-50s. And finally, we can play with the expenses. So if you decide you do want to move out of state and you're going to have a lower cost of living, maybe you're moving to Texas, and the cost of living is lower than, let's say it is in, Eastvale or Rancho Cucamonga, then we can manipulate the numbers to illustrate you living on a little bit less in retirement. And it's very easy to do once the plan is finalized. And then, of course, we can link outside accounts. So if you want to link your 401k to your plan, or maybe you have a Scottrade account you want to see all in one place, we can do that for you as well. Now, in our investment proven process, so this is on the investment management. This is what I talked about, the friends and family bundled pricing, hopefully starting you out at that 1% tier on the first million, 0.9 after that, 0.75 when you get up in the higher range with friends and family, is we manage money with discretion for our clients. So we trade and rebalance and make these decisions for you. So you don't have to do this while you're working or in retirement at Edison. And we do it in a really, what appears to be a simple way, but in the back end, the trading software is very complex where we can do a lot of neat things for our clients. But we manage a global stock, a global bond, and a global real asset portfolio. And then we take those three and we can blend them to whatever custom portfolio we need in retirement. And we base a lot of our decisions around these 7 key factors here in the bottom, which I'm just going to cover real quick because they're it's small print, but it's around risk tolerance, asset allocation, tax efficiency, looking at investments from a global perspective. So looking at global diversification, not just owning all US stocks, but also adding in there some emerging market or international stocks. And, we're talking about companies, that are make vehicles that we drive every day. So this isn't anything, too complex, but looking overseas at in companies such as, Daimler, who makes Mercedes and Freightliner trucks, things that we use here every day. We're obviously looking to seek value. We want to reduce friction, which is trading cost and any expenses we can. And so we're always working hard to create portfolios that have a low amount of friction in them. And then finally, behavioral alpha. And this is looking at, Edison's a great example, but is when Edison went from $80 a share down to $50 a share, is not panicking and selling, but instead trying to figure out what is the best decision at the moment. So instead of just normally buying stuff at the high and selling at the low, we want to insulate our clients from making decisions such as that or a mistake right before retirement. The mistakes near retirement or in retirement can be very costly. And so we try to insulate our clients from those decisions, having conversations, looking at data, looking at research, and making a decision as a whole around decisions like Edison stock in your 401k. So I know that was a lot, but I just wanted to touch base on that. I'm going to actually ask Justin to jump in real quick before we wrap up, and we're going to be opening it up for questions here in a moment. So if anybody has any questions now, we're going to cover that in about a minute. But before we do, and then if you have a question, you can go to the chat or the question section and type those in there. Justin's going to cover the updates this year specific to coronavirus and the CARES Act and cover what you have as far as options are.
Yep, thanks, Gary. So I'll just quickly kind of run through some of the most relevant points. So the CARES Act was a huge bill that was passed earlier in this year in relation to, like Carrie said, the COVID-19 and coronavirus pandemic. And so one of the most common things that we end up talking to clients about that resulted from this CARES Act are the impacts on retirement accounts. And so I'll just quickly run through what those impacts were. First bullet point, this one's not going to be applicable to most people on the call unless they have an inherited IRA, but all required minimum distributions are waived for 2020. So for individuals who are over 70 and a half or have an inherited IRA, they do not need to take a minimum distribution this year. Number two is more flexibility on both distributions and loans from IRA and 401ks. So a couple different nuance pieces here. So you can now take up to $100,000 out of your IRA, regardless of whether or not you're 59 and a half, without the early 10% withdrawal penalty. Not only did they do the penalty waiver, but they also made it a little bit flexible into how that distribution is treated. You can either have the taxation of it, because you'll still be paying federal and state tax, just no penalty. But you can have that tax, the federal tax, spread over 3 years, or you can choose to have elected all tax this year if you have a low income year. Or you can actually pay it back into the account and end up paying no tax at all, treat it similar to you would a 401k loan. Which really leads to the next bullet point here, which is 401k loans have been increased as well. So rather than the usual $50,000 cap on 401k loans or 50% of your account balance, you can now borrow up to 100% of your account balance or $100,000, whichever is lesser. And so that's a new feature that they added to basically increase the loan provision and increase the amount that you're able to borrow. The key thing is to take advantage of any of these things, with the exception of the RMDs, you need to have been impacted by the virus. Now, it's very vague what that means. So they can mean you had the virus yourself, a family member had it, or you could also just say you had a financial impact, which again is vague. It could be your income was cut or otherwise. The last and perhaps the most important point I want to make on this is just because these options are available does not mean you need to use them. In most cases, I would avoid using them because, like I said, if you're taking a distribution, even though there's no penalty, it's still taxable and adding on to your other income for the year. So I would use these as a last resort if needed, but just wanted to make you aware of them in case you heard some rumblings as to what actually is available. I know there's a lot of information floating around the world and virtual water cooler talk on these. So that's your 30-second summary on the CARES Act.
Thank you, Justin. So finally, number 8, last one is for you to decide when to retire and enjoy all life has to offer. We are aware that Southern California Edison makes some of these webinar tools not available. So what we're doing with this one is we're going to make this available on YouTube for replay, and we'll be sending this out to everybody. So if you had a friend at work who wanted to join and couldn't get on, we understand that's an issue. We're working on that for a fix, but we are going to make it available via YouTube. We're going to take that link and send it out to everybody, so you will get a copy of this as well. Finally, if you have any questions, please let us know now. We have the chat and question section open. If you don't, we're going to wrap up and let you know how to get a hold of us. If you do have some thoughts, concerns about your retirement, your 401k investments, maybe some debt, one of the most common things we get is, how do I get my credit cards paid off before retirement? Should I buy another vehicle before retirement? Or how much should I have in cash? Do I have too little? Do I have too much? We have literally heard it all. And it doesn't, our goal is to honestly help you decide if we can, improve your plan or not. And our guarantee is a 30-minute call. And you can do that just by going to our website /schedule. You can call us or email us if you would like to start a discussion with us around retirement. And again, we've been doing this for a little over 14 years now, and as a collective, we're a true ensemble. We work in the best interest of our clients as fiduciaries, and we have a team, 3 CFPs and a CFA. We have the credentials, and we love doing this stuff, so please don't hesitate to contact us. Before I sign out here, Justin and Emily, is there anything you wanted to add? And I'll pause if we do. If not, we are good. I'm getting some thumbs up. Everything looks good?
Yeah,
awesome.
All good. Yeah, thanks a lot.
Thanks for joining us, and have a wonderful rest of your day, and we look forward to talking to you all. Take care.